This is the OverReaction podcast.
Chuck, good to
Hi,
see you again,
Jeremy.
my friend.
Good to see you. Happy Friday.
Yeah, you too. So how's it going? How you doing?
Doing great. I mean, super busy, as in a CIO role, but also in the personal life as well. And I know we'll probably talk about a lot of that stuff. So
Yeah, no, that's actually kind of what I want to start out with, a little bit about your a little bit about your background, where you came from, how'd you get
yeah,
into healthcare, how'd you get CIO, where are you at right now, that kind of stuff. So let's start there if you don't mind.
yeah, it sounds great. So actually, I was grew up in part of my youth in Western Pennsylvania. So small town called Monongahela. My
Coal
father
country.
coal country and steel country. My
Awesome.
father worked for U.S. Steel, and
Nice.
yeah, I was a steel worker and blue collar, and all my family's from there. I still have family in that area in West Virginia as well. Cousins that are in the coal mines and stuff like that. My claim to fame is um, I went to grade school with Joe Montana. So if you look up
Oh, for
Joe
real.
Montana, yeah, he was born in Monongahela, and we're the same age. So first grade, you got the little pictures, the little
Yeah.
squares. Yeah, I'm up here and he's down here, So in the first grade, it was a little small school, and I just remember him as being, very athletic, as you can imagine, really good at
Yeah.
kickball, the fastest runner in the school, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
never thought he'd go where he went, but that's for sure. But luckily, my father got transferred to New England, to Worcester area, Worcester, Massachusetts,
Mm.
when I was young, about 10 years old, and that was actually good, because otherwise we wouldn't be talking right now, because I probably would have been driving a cement truck or in the coal mines or in the steel mills
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, so luckily I got there, and kind of a different way of life for sure, being in New England, and certainly a lot more opportunity. He ended up retiring. U.S. Steel kind of went downhill, and he ended up retiring. But I was able to go to college, and I was actually the first in our line of Podestas to actually graduate from college
Oh, for
back in
real.
1979.
That's a proud moment for the parents, I bet.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it took that long for that line to get to college, but we were just immigrants, and my father's Italian, so yeah,
Yeah.
his parents came over on the boat, and from Italy, and so yeah, it was quite. I didn't realize it as I was growing up until I actually got to college, and my parents would talk about, like, I'd be the first one, and that counts, like all the cousins and all the uncles and all the
Wow.
everything, right? Yeah. Everybody in my family were laborers. My grandfather was a glass blower. Back in the day, before that's how you made glass bottles for milk.
Yeah.
Everything else he had to
Wow.
do, yeah, by hand, and so yeah, I came up from that stock, which is actually good, because I learned hard work, paper routes at an early age, and
Yeah.
dishwasher, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I actually went to school. I graduated in education, elementary education, but I went for a job. Actually, it was in southern Vermont, and I still remember this. It was like $15,000 a year, uh, yeah, for a school teacher. And I know they were underpaid back then. They're underpaid today for what they do.
Sure.
But yeah, I was like, wow, did I go to college for this? And so at the time, back in those days, if you remember, there was COBOL and programming and BASIC and Fortran
Yep.
and mini computers with Digital Equipment Corporation and Data General and Prime, and all those companies started to come to fruition. And a lot of my friends were kind of getting into that business. And so I went back to night school, didn't get a degree or anything, but went back for COBOL programming, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
I really loved it. Um, so got into that, and then got a job actually at University of Massachusetts Medical Center. Actually, before that, I was making trophies in a trophy factory, of all places, and yeah, really good at making trophies. So, but I was able to get into accounts payable department at UMass in Worcester, which is still there. a lot bigger than what it was back in the day. And it just started as being a medical school.
Yeah.
And so accounts payable, data entry on the IBM systems, and actually, kind of enjoyed it. And, when it broke down, people would come and fix it. And I talked to them about it. And so I met the guy who ran the computer center in the lunchroom one time, and he was looking for a computer operator. So switch gears. And so I've had basically, and that was in 1981. So I've had probably every job there is in healthcare IT. I stayed in healthcare the whole time, went into some consulting, but always in healthcare. I had every job: computer operator, programming. I was actually a mumps programmer, a MEAS programmer, which was Meditech and
Wow.
Epic. Yeah.
Epic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Back in the day. And so I still understand the structures of those databases. Went into a CTO position before it was called a CTO. It was kind of manager of systems and operations. So I ran the data center, and then moved into the application side. Like I said, did programming and became a director of applications and a director of IT, and kind of just, worked my way up in various positions that I had at different organizations, along the way. I got my first CIO job as an interim in 1995 at a place called Baystate Health.
Oh yeah.
Western Massachusetts. Yep.
Yeah.
My boss left, went to another organization, and they made me the interim. And took them a really long time to recruit, the recruiting process. And at the time, I didn't really want it. It was nice to be the interim CIO, but I kind of liked the operations side of it more than the strategy side at the time. But after a year and a half and being part of the interview process and just seeing some of the candidates, I threw my hat in the ring. But it was towards the end, and they already had a viable candidate. So I was kind of like, wow, it's one lesson learned. I should have started right away advocating for myself. But still, I had the interim role for a year and a half. Then a brand new CIO position opened up at Berkshire Health Systems, a little further west, Western Massachusetts. Yep. And yeah, it was the first CIO position that they had. And so I went there and got that. And so I'm going on almost 30 years now as a CIO.
And you went Berkshire to Fletcher?
I went from Berkshire to St. Mary's Health System, which is in Waterbury, Connecticut, Catholic-based organization. At that time, I was really into Meditech. Did Meditech at Berkshire Health System. They're still using Meditech. I implemented that, I think, in 2001, something like that. And moved to St. Mary's, and went from St. Mary's to an organization called Caritas Christi, which was in Boston, a 6-hospital system at that time, very large. Had a bunch of had St. Elizabeth's, St. Anne's, a bunch of again tied to the Catholic Church. Yep. Actually became Steward. Steward bought Caritas, so you know a lot about Steward, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of fascinating. I had an opportunity at Fletcher Allen coming up, and I really liked my boss, the CEO, who was the interim CEO. And actually my boss got fired 4 months after I started for some sort of harassment claim or something. So those things happen. So the interim I worked with for a good year and a half, and he was awesome, but they were interviewing for a new CEO, and I was at the time looking at this opportunity at Fletcher Allen, and I got to meet the CEO, who's the CEO today, who's under the gun with Congress and everybody. I got to meet him, and there were red flags went up right away for me, because I remember in my interview with him, he would say things like, Chuck, I'm very interested in technology, and I have a lot of ideas around, putting electronic health records on a USB drive. Back then those were, and it's like, how are you going to do that? And all this kind of wild things. And he goes, I might call you on Friday afternoon, or I call you over the weekend with one of my ideas, and I'm going to want an answer on Monday. So basically what he was telling me is I'm going to have to work 7 days a week. Right. And I'm like, I don't mind working hard, but no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. So there are a lot of red flags with that. So I agreed on Fletcher Allen right after that. And the day before the new guy started, his name was Dr. Delatorre. The day before he started, I resigned to the previous CEO, the interim CEO, and started my journey on Fletcher Allen. So that's my story about Steward. And boy, I'll tell you, there is a God out there, because he steered me to the right the right move on that one, for sure. Because my CMIO, when they became Caritas Christi and Movements, he became the CIO, and I stayed in close touch with him, and he only lasted about a year and a half. He just, it was 7 days a week. It was that 7 days a week, and they went through CIOs.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends take jobs there, and then they were gone within a year and a half. I'm like, well, that was quick. So
yeah. So it was a learning experience, and then of course Fletcher Allen was just starting with Epic, and that was great as I kind of moved, and I was really interested in that because I was in the Meditech world, and from a resume standpoint, building my career, to have Epic under my belt was big, and also an academic medical center, right? They're now the University of Vermont Health Network. And I love the team, Burlington, Vermont. Oh gosh, the outdoors. I mean, the whole thing was great. A little on the cold side, but so yeah, I was there from 2008 until 2014, and then that's when I went to the West Coast from Burlington. I went to UC Irvine and moved to Huntington Beach. So that was quite a
that's
change.
different.
Yeah,
that's
very
different.
And it worked out pretty well, because in Burlington, I actually started. I got later in life, and I'm in my 50s, and my kids were growing up and going to college. My daughter was actually at UVM, and I knew they would be getting married and having kids and stuff, and I was out of shape, and just not taking care of myself. Starting on all the meds that you start on, your Lipitors and your hypertensive drugs and stuff like that. And I was like, do I want to be? They're gonna have kids. Do I want to be grandpa, sitting in a chair and having them get me a beer, or do I want to be grandpa, playing with them and playing with them in the backyard and teaching them how to play baseball and different things like that, right? And that's what really the switch went on at that point. I was like, okay, I got to do something. And at the same time, the marathon on Memorial Day weekend, Burlington Marathon, was run every year. And it ran right upside, like the 13-mile mark was up a hill right in front of my condo. And I used to watch it sitting there with a beer, right? And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to figure out a way to do this thing one year. So I started running, and actually enjoyed it, and got into kind of a club. And in 2011, I think I did a half marathon relay with another guy. He ran the first half, I ran the second half. Did it again in 12, and then he got injured in 13. And luckily it was not for him, but for me, luckily it was 3 months or so before the marathon. So my only choice was to find another person to run with, which I couldn't do, or run the whole thing. So I decided at that point, I'm gonna go for it. That was a sign. So in 2013, I ran my first marathon, Vermont City it was called, and did well and finished and got into the training of it. And then that was the year of the Boston bombing, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I had a lot of friends from the club and stuff who had ran that and came back with just really sad stories. And so I was kind of like, you know what, I gotta run Boston in 2014. I just got to do that. I'm from New England, and so I got into Boston for 2014, and that was amazing. It was such a celebration. It was kind of like a city rising up again, from the ashes. That's where the strong thing came from, Boston Strong. You see that everywhere now, New York Strong. Everybody uses strong. They came from Boston Strong. And it was just an amazing event. And then I thought, okay, I'm done. I got that going. I got 2 marathons.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me about this thing called the Abbott 6-star World Majors. And I was like, what the hell's that? And they were like, well, it's Boston. It's all the majors: Boston, New York, Chicago, London, Berlin, and Tokyo. And they're majors because they're just marathons. That's what they do, right? And all the pros run them and stuff. So, and they're hard to get into. And so I was like, you know what? I'm all in. So I ran, so that fall I ran Chicago, which is really fast. It was actually my fastest marathon because it's very flat. And it's why a lot of people do their PRs. And so that was cool. And so I got 2 out of the way. And then the next year I ran Boston again because it was a marathon while my family could be there at the end.
Sure.
I just enjoyed it. It's really hard. It's probably the hardest one in the circuit, but it just, Boston's just amazing from a fan base. And so I ran that in 2015. Then I ran New York in the fall of 2015. So I got that one done. And then in 2016, I ran London, which was at the same time, a week difference between Boston. So I couldn't run Boston, but I ran London, and that was amazing. All the characters and costumes, and
Yeah.
we finish in front of Buckingham Palace on the Mall, and
That's cool.
yeah, and you hit the pubs afterwards. I mean, it's just amazing. And then did Berlin in the fall, and that was the first day of Oktoberfest, which was awesome. Got on a train to Munich, slept on the train, went down to Munich and drank, steins of beer, and that was awesome. And then took a while to get into Tokyo. That was a really hard one. I did some charity runs, but Tokyo only had one charity, so it was really hard to get into that. Qualifying was difficult. They had a lottery system, and it took me a few years to get into that. And in the meantime, I ran Boston again, and ended up running Boston 4 times. But I ran that again, and I did got into some trail running, and ran a Tulsa race called, I forget what it was called now, but it was a big challenge. There was 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You ran a half marathon on Friday, 15 miles on Saturday, and a half marathon on Sunday. They put you up, and it was kind of like boot camp. And they fed you, and you got up the next day and just ran. That's what you did.
Oh,
yeah, and you took a nap and ate and went to bed, and then got up and ran again. And the trail running is so different than the road running, and definitely a much bigger workout. You got to eat on the way, and they're just a different breed of people that run those trails. I mean, at the food stops, I'm used to having Gatorade and water and a banana and orange, right? Their stops, they had tater tots and quesadillas and Jameson and Fireball. And there were runners like taking shots of Fireball as you're running through the woods, and I'm just like, wow, this is very different. So they're hardcore. And then finally get it. Yeah, so it's quite the experience, but finally get into Post Oak Challenge. That's what it was called. Finally get into Tokyo in 2018. That was a great experience. Great. I'd love to go back there when I wasn't running. Just people are amazing, so clean, and they know how to put on a marathon. So at the end, you have this like little thing on your bib that says that's your 6th, right? Your 6th world major. So Abbott has these spotters out there because they know you're coming. And so they take you, you get your Tokyo medal, and then they take you into a different route to go get your Abbott medal. So yeah, so you end up with both medals, and you get to meet like the president of Abbott, and they take a picture. And because there's only those races, I think there were only about 50 people getting out of 40,000, getting that medal. Yeah, there's we're up to about 10,000 now that are in the world that have got all 6. We have our own Facebook page, our own swag thing that we can go into and get the hats and the shirts and stuff. So you don't wear that stuff unless you've done it. It's like this jacket. I'm wearing a Boston Marathon jacket from a certain.
Yeah, that's too ambitious for me, man. I do the DH mountain biking. I'm a dirt bagger all the way, but I'm not a cardio guy. You got the same kind of crew that does like the really long mountain bike rides. They'll just go forever.
Yeah, what it is more though, Jeremy, I think is getting out of your comfort zone, whatever it is. That's what I learned. I mean, it was the hardest thing. Running a marathon was the hardest thing I ever did. And nothing in life, personal and my professional life, is harder than that. So I always bounce it off that when I have a challenge. It's like, is this harder than a marathon? No, then shut up and fix it, right? And
it's good philosophy.
You do the same thing, yeah. And my saying now is life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. So
true.
for you, like,
That's a good saying.
staring down a trail on a cliff and you're on a mountain bike and you're like, okay, how am I going to get from here to there? You're at the edge of your comfort zone, right? And then when you do it, when you get down there, it's like, yeah, I did it, and that's your heart's pumping. That's life. Life begins at the edge of that.
Well,
comfort.
speaking about the edge of the comfort zone,
Yeah.
I mean, you're into like a lot of horseback riding, competitive shooting. Like I mean, the Acton Marathon seems like it kind of open your mind to all this other kind of stuff where you're like, I'm not saying no anymore. I'm saying yes to stuff.
You hit the nail on the head. I say yes now. Again, it's not things that I'm not trying to do things that are on the edge of like life and death.
Sure.
Yeah, you could injure yourself and things like that, but I'm not doing those types. You got to balance that a little bit, but it's things that I never thought I would do before in my life. I would, 20 years ago, I would say no. I'm not doing that. It's just either too hard or I just don't think I can do it. But you're right. Now I say yes. And, when I went from UC Irvine back to COVID in Boston, it was at UConn Health for an interim, and then came here in Nevada. And it opened up a whole new world for me. Of course, with COVID, you want to be outside now. Everybody wants to be in the COVID-free space of nature, and got us all back into it. So coming out to Reno was just a godsend for me. Another, lifestyle change 3 years ago, and I didn't realize it, but I like the Western life. I remember when I was a kid watching John Wayne with my father and all the movies, and and thought that was really cool. And it's amazing when your childhood it impacts you all through life, no matter how old you are. And so when I put on the Western wear and put on my hat the first time and walked out, I was like, wow, this feels comfortable, So then I grew this mustache and got discovered in Reno, walking down the street, a photographer.
Really?
Yeah. And basically said you have the look.
You got the look.
When somebody walks up to you, in a city, you're kind of like, who are you? But she had a card.
What are you doing? Yeah. Well, maybe if this was Boston, you probably just punched him right in the head. But given it's Reno, you're like,
we're very friendly out here, right? And and she goes, well, I'm going to do a photo shoot with you. And I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah, no, you have this look. You have this, I never knew what the look was. I have no idea what the look was. I just take a photo with your phone, and I don't know anything about that. But we met up last October, a little town called Minden. And it was awesome. It was like 6:30 in the morning, sunrise, and it was like overcast, maybe a little drizzly. I actually thought we would probably cancel because of the weather, but it was like, tells you how much
perfect,
like perfect lighting.
Oh, okay.
So her and the crew is like, they're like all excited. This is going to be awesome. And then I actually had to do a little acting. I didn't realize, don't look at the camera unless they tell you to. And, she's like, I'm all dressed up in my gear, and I've got this duster on, and, I've got an 1873 Colt Army on my holster and everything. And I've got a, Winchester 1894 lever action. So I had all the
Sweet
gear. Yeah. And she's like, I want you to walk towards me. Don't look at us. Pretend that you heard something, which, you immediately kind of crouch down and look to the right, look to the left, draw your weapon, because you don't know whether it's man or beast or both. And so I did. And after like 20 minutes, I, doing that back and forth, I kind of like started laughing, because it felt like silly to me. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and she just stopped. She looked at me. She goes, you think that's funny? And I'm like, geez, I'm going to get fired like here in the first photo shoot. And I said, I don't know. I feel kind of, she goes, come over here. So I walk over, and she turns her camera around and shows me something. I'm like, who is that? And she's like, that's you. I keep telling you, you have the look. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like,
they're the pros, right? They know.
They know what it is. I have the look.
Yeah.
So I got on all casting, and that's where all the directors go and stuff. And I've done a bunch of different photo shoots. Just finished one, a snowy one out Mount Rose here. And so getting a lot of hits on that. I actually got back on social media. I never had a Instagram or Facebook or anything, just LinkedIn. but I have a both for my modeling stuff, because I'm connected now with all these different agencies and stuff like that. So I'm working
Well,
on
we'll
getting
need to. So
now.
we'll put in the description of the podcast your LinkedIn, but then give me your Instagram. And
Oh,
we'll
okay.
put links to your Instagram as well.
Yeah, yeah, I can shoot you that. It's very easy. It's my Instagram is Chuck Podesta, all one word.
Done. Good.
Yeah, it's pretty, and I'm linked to Facebook. So when you go into Instagram, whatever
Yeah.
goes in, yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm still learning on how to post stuff. There's not a whole lot there, but
Yeah,
I've got
I'm an
about,
idiot. I put some mountain bike videos on, but I never know. People are like, "Oh, you got to do music. You got to tag this." I'm like,
yeah,
I'm
I
just gonna
know.
post. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
post
still learning all that. Luckily my kids are, they know all about it, so I can ask them,
That's
how do
good.
you do this stuff? And but yeah, you're right. You want music and stories, and
Yeah, I don't.
so I'm still learning all it. But mine's
There's
more
stories and
connecting.
reels and
Yeah,
I don't.
reels
I
and
don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, and mine is just more connecting with the outside
Yeah,
industry, modeling industry, because that's where you want the hits are. So I'm trying to do that, but I'm trying to get it into an agency. That's the way to go. And with this Yellowstone craze, see, they're looking for kind of the next Sam Elliott.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Yellowstone. I know it's like a soap opera almost, because there's no way that I grew up out in the sticks. You didn't see that kind of stuff happen,
yeah,
but it
right.
doesn't matter. They're still really cool. Like the
Yeah, it is.
characters are great.
Yeah, and I get stopped all the time. I wear my gear out here in Reno or wherever I go now. One of the things I learned from my photographer, she's awesome, is like I used to just wear this stuff for the photographs and then maybe
Yeah.
occasionally around town. She goes, "This is you now. You wear this stuff." Now I don't have it on today because I had part of a boot camp. So I got my
Oh, that's
other
right. We got to talk
persona.
about that boot camp in a second too,
Yeah, I'll
because
tell you about
you
that, but
mentioned something
that's
about
my
that
other
before.
persona right now. But normally I'd
Yeah.
have my gear on. I wear it to Boston now. I'm not afraid to wear it there, and even though it's not
Nice.
Halloween, and but I get comments from men and women on the gear and the mustache and the whole thing, and it's really really interesting. You're never told to kind of reinvent yourself that way. And actually, I had
That's
one.
true.
I was in a store shopping, and this couple came up to me, a younger couple, and the guy was like, "Man," he goes, "I love your mustache." He goes, "And I wish I could grow that." And she looks over at me and she goes, "I wish she could too." And
That's
I
awesome.
was like, "Okay,
He
I'm
just
done here. I'm done
his
here. I don't want to
testosterone
fight."
level just.
Yeah. I was like, "I'm leaving now." Yeah.
Oh gosh,
Yeah, but
that's
it was fun.
awesome.
But yeah,
That's
so
awesome, man.
so I do that modeling, and then
You need to do that. I want to see the testosterone level of all these celebrity CIOs shrink the next hymns or chime when they get around you.
well,
That's what I want.
they have. I wore it last October for the first time, and I'll do it again coming up. But yeah, it's very interesting to see people's reaction, and then yeah. So, but it's me now, and I feel comfortable in it. I wear it. I've got a whole closet of gear. Some of it's modeling, some of it's I just wear. I'm a church goer, like you as well. I wear it to
Yeah,
church and every Sunday, and I get a lot of
nice.
compliments. I'm big into bolo ties and the buckles now, and
Oh, nice.
yeah. So yeah, you're right about riding horses, and I started doing that. I figured if I'm going to go all in the cowboy way, I'm going to go all in, start shooting guns, and I'm now doing USPSA. It's United States Pistol Shooting Association, open division. I've got some race guns, so I'm training now. I'm actually
Nice.
going tomorrow to do some training outdoors. Get to do some draw and move, and some tactical target shooting, which I really enjoy. And I find it keeps me, it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing, because, with guns, you get the
Oh,
safety. You're constant, you've got to be thinking when you got that in your hand. One, you're in competition, so you've got to concentrate on that, but also the safety aspects of it. You're constantly concentrating on that. And I'll tell you, I do an hour and a half of training. It's like going to the gym. I'm beat. My body's sore because of the tenseness and the movement, and my mind is just fried. And I really like that, because as you get older, these are
yeah.
the things you got to keep your mind fried. I'm 66. I'm going to be 67 in December. So
You wear it well, my friend. Not
kind of
hitting on you, but you wear it well.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to trying to age gracefully. And
That,
again, it goes back to my
you talk
motivation.
about that mental acuity. So there was a friend of
Yeah,
mine, a lot older. He died. He's 80. He's about 82. He had some congestive heart issue, but he was a retired sheriff, and how he stayed young and nimble till he got really really sick was quick draw, and he was national champion many years in a row in quick draw. And I
yeah,
could not believe how fast he could unholster and hit a
it's
target. Like
unreal.
it was.
They can
Because
move.
most people, like in the movies, it's all fake. You're not hitting someone from 100 feet away right in the head with a 357. You don't know guns if you think that's the reason everyone trains within 20 feet, right? Because that's
Yeah,
where things are going down. But
right.
it was amazing. Like I can't. So you
They,
doing it with the mental acuity, so smart.
yeah, and it's not, it's brain memory. A lot of people call it muscle memory, because that's why you practice, you do dry fire, right? And mag reloads and all that kind of stuff. And that's great, dry fire, because you want a repetition in anything that you do. But it's not so much muscle memory, it's really brain memory. And I think what probably kept him sharp, it's hopefully keeping me sharp. But, I'm under a second in a draw and 2 shots at a target. So,
That's
I'm
awesome.
getting faster doing that. But yeah, so and then so that's a nice pastime for me. I got the modeling going now, still a CIO. And then I noticed that as I get older, I did lose a lot of weight too. I lost from 10 years ago about 40 pounds. So what happens is your skin is not as elastic, right, as you're older. And so what I noticed is I started, like, as you're losing muscle, as you get older, your skin starts to get kind of creepy, kind of like,
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, "Oh, I don't, I got to get back in the gym here." And aerobic is not the way to do. Aerobic's going to make it worse. I got to
yeah,
get
it's
some,
true.
yeah. So I started, like, doing some things. 'Cause I have a Peloton. I've got all the aerobic stuff. I hike a lot. But and I was like, I got to build some muscle. So I found this boot camp that I actually have to apply for, and because it's serious and it's 6 month program. You have to go so many times a week, and they only have so many sessions, so you got to work around your schedule. And sometimes, like, you got to do doubles. Like, I did a 6:30 session last night and a 6 a.m. session this morning
Oh, okay.
to get my numbers in
That
this
takes me
week.
back to high school football 2 days.
Yeah, do it. And Monday, I've done Mondays where I've done a Monday morning at 6 a.m. and a Monday night at 6:30 p.m. And you got to get your numbers in per week. Otherwise, they can throw you out. And I like that.
That's motivating.
It's a true boot camp, and we're 3 months in. So actually tomorrow I do a weigh in, and they measured you, and I got on these different machines and stuff, and had to row 500 meters in a certain period of time. And so we did that at the beginning for the baseline. Now tomorrow we're actually doing it again. So I'm really excited to kind of see, what my progression is going to be. And then, we'll do it again in 3 months at the end of the program. And what they try to do, their motivation is to show you, how far you progress, so that at the end of 6 months, you don't stop. You just, maybe you don't
Yeah.
do, boot camp type, but you continue on for the rest of your life. And yeah, I can see, and you make friends. It's a social group now. We do things together. We go to coffee together, have a beer together, hike together. You get to know these people quite well, because you're
That
working.
probably helps reinforce too, right?
It does, yeah, because we're talking about, like, hey, we don't want to, split up at the end of this in 6 months. We want to work out together and stay together. So
Do you think? Let me get your perspective. I'm going to get too far off,
sure,
but I was watching watched a couple of podcasts. I've never had a weight problem. I've always just stayed super active. Been pretty lucky. Maybe it's just hyperactive and always had to do something. Just
yeah,
but listen to a couple of podcasts. I'm just fascinated by the GLP-1s, semaglutides,
yeah,
and so when I listen to you, I'm like, okay, that's someone that is changing lifestyle, and it takes a long time.
hmm,
But you put in these reinforcement mechanisms mainly because you didn't cut corners. So the
right,
only concern, so I'm not anti GLP-1s, Ozempic, Wegovy. I'm not, right. I think in cases of people who are morbidly obese, like serious diabetes, etc., I think it makes sense. But
yes,
outside of those extreme cases, shortcutting slowly instilling discipline, going through the grind, creating a support group, creating a lifestyle, etc. I think that's what makes it sustainable. And that's what they're starting to find, besides some potential side effects, is, hey, like, if you don't take that time to make these changes, what you find is you used to use food as a coping mechanism, and now you're depressed,
right?
Because you don't have the desire to eat, and you've lost that coping mechanism too. So it's fascinating. Anyway, I'm just fascinated by what you're doing, because to me it seems much more sustainable, and it's a holistic change in life. Like, when people get overweight, it isn't a simple thing of, well, they just eat too much and they don't exercise. There's usually lots of other things surrounding it.
Right. And I agree with you on that, the aspect of, obesity and things like that, because boy, if you can lose 40 or 50 pounds taking this, and, and your A1C comes down, right, and you're not type 2 diabetic anymore, certainly your heart, everything is going to be better.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to jump on that. Unfortunately, it's so expensive that there's a big disparity in who can do it. But if you're
That's
at 170, yeah, but if you're at 175 and you're trying to get to 165, come on, and that's why I like celebrities in Hollywood and stuff. There's a lot of them who are just trying to sculpt a little bit more, get that extra 5 or 10 pounds, and they're doing that, and they can do it because
get that
money,
weird, right? Ozempic face.
Yeah,
they
get
call
the
it,
weird face thing going, and I don't. Again, you're right about shortcuts, but I think a lot has to do with what your motivation is. And I mentioned mine. Mine was, 10, 12, 15 years ago, when my kids were growing up and they were going to have grandkids. And lo and behold, look at me now.
Great motivation.
I have 4 grandkids. I have 4 grandkids. I have 3 girls and a boy. I've got a boy who's in baseball. He's 7 years old, and he just started in baseball and stuff. And now they're back east, but I can't wait to go back. I go back, throw the ball with him. I can catch it. I can throw it. I'm not sitting in a chair somewhere, right? And then I get the 3 girls who are very active, soccer. We run around the backyard. We do things together. They don't want to see their they call me Pop. They don't want to see their Pop, sitting in a chair. That's not a fun Pop. I'm a fun Pop, and I'm teaching them fishing, or we take them fishing, and
that's higher level motivation. Because if it's just, I want to look,
the one that works.
I just want to look good. Like, well, that's subjective.
That's going to make
that's a moving target.
Think about the story I heard that really triggered it for me, but it was back in the day. It was with Bill Clinton. He always had weight trouble, right? And when Chelsea was getting married, he lost a ton of weight for the marriage, right? And that was what everybody thought. Oh, I'm losing weight because I'm going to go to this wedding and I want to look good and all that kind of stuff. And he was the one who triggered it on me, because he said, "No, I'm not losing the weight for the wedding. She's getting married and she's having kids. I'm losing weight for those kids." Bingo. And so he didn't gain. So 2 weeks after the wedding, he didn't gain the weight back. He kept it off. And that's what people, when you can find that trigger in a human being, whatever that behavior trigger is, all the other things will follow. All the other things that you do in life will follow that particular trigger. And that's the missing piece of science right now, is figuring out on a human, everybody's different, but finding out what that trigger, everybody's got one. Everybody's got one. Now, where this Ozempic and those other ones circumvent it, is it becomes, you don't have to have the trigger, right? You just have to have money to go out and get it, and then go for it. Now, the only other thing I would say, though, is the jury's still out, because there's other studies going on with this stuff that's really, really interesting. And I know some people are taking this stuff. And I know a person who's a gambler, big gambler, hasn't gone to a casino in months. Okay. I know another person who. So it's
changing other behavior.
Likes to tip the drink quite a bit. No desire anymore. Okay. Wow. So it's that craving, like wherever that food is, that food craving piece in your brain is around, you mentioned depression, wherever that is in your brain, I forget where it is. So I think it's in the Olympic, but wherever that is, it seems to be suppressing that as well. So there might be some other, benefits beyond the weight loss that can actually.
I think anything like that you could take, which is that can help jumpstart something, if you marry it with some of the things like you've done, well, you might have the magic potion, so to speak, right?
Right.
Where it's because the concern is the second you stop taking it, everybody, if they don't change, if they don't start exercising, whoo, they go back immediately. So it's like, so use it as that jump start, like that trigger that you mentioned, that really helps. And then, all right, merge it with a lifestyle change, and be okay with it. And this is something that's been so fascinating for me, is be okay with it taking a while. Like, people, they spend years and years getting way out of shape, eating really badly, but then they expect they're going to take on the training and eating regimen of an Olympic athlete. Like, that doesn't work. Like,
go slow. I tell new runners, like a lot of runners will be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start running. And they'll say, okay, I'm going to go out and run 2 miles. Right. And so that's their motivation. So they go out, and of course they run about a half a mile, and then they fail.
Yeah.
And they basically view it as failure. They're like, I can never do this, and they go home. And again, so I tell them, look, I said, no, your goal is 2 miles. How you get there is not the challenge.
Yeah.
It's start running, and when you can't run anymore, start walking, and then start running again and start walking. And then after, and do that, every day or every other day. And then try to run a little more and time how much you run and how much you walk, right? And each time try to do that extra step of running, right? And after 2 weeks, you'll run the 2 miles. And then you'll be like, yes, then you'll go to 3 and you'll walk again. Walking is not failure. That's a lot of people are like,
bingo.
Oh, you run a marathon and you see people walking, and it's like, well, anybody can do that. Well, no, you can't. I mean,
You can't.
It's all,
No,
it's
you
all
can't.
part of it. It's so you gotta go easy on yourself with this stuff. And you get to 5 miles, and you get to 7 miles, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can do this now. But
and if you miss a day, this is what other people do too, Chuck. If you miss a day, don't make it up the next day. Punish yourself by going, oh, I was supposed to do 5 miles a day. I didn't. Okay, tomorrow I'm gonna do 10. No. Or I ate too many calories today. Tomorrow I'm gonna go like super. Like, no. This is just restart. Just start over again. Don't punish yourself. Don't torture yourself, and be okay that it might take you 12 months or 18 months or 2 years. Slow but steady wins the race when it comes to a change in lifestyle.
Right, exactly. And what I hope is, like, the people who do the most Ozempic and stuff is that, they lose that 40 and 50 pounds like we talked about, and then jumpstart from there, because you can lose that weight and still be unhealthy. You'll certainly be healthier, but from an aerobic, from a heart standpoint, things like that, unless you start exercising, again, as you get older, your skin's gonna, you lost all that weight. Unless you
lose muscle mass.
Yeah, you're gonna have that the skin issue, and that's sometimes looks worse than the weight, right? And from a body image, from a body image standpoint. But if you use it as a jump start, like, I'm struggling, I want to work out, but every time I start, my weight gets in the way. I have anxiety, depression, so I'm having trouble doing any type of diet. I'm going to start this program with Ozempic. Great. But when I get down to this weight, I'm going to kick in this workout program, and the eating's going to take care of itself, because that's what Ozempic does. I mean, you're not going to craving. And then I'm going to, if you do something like that, I'm all in. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah,
totally.
I probably would have done it back in the day if it was available when I was losing my 40 pounds to then start running. I probably would have used it to jumpstart it. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Jumping back into healthcare a little bit.
Yeah,
I have a question. I've started asking people a couple questions about this, because I'm always on LinkedIn. I see I post a bunch of crap and stir things up and probably piss a lot of people off.
I'm doing that now as well in my age.
I saw. So it was during this 2-day period, I just noticed a ton of people talking about chief digital transformation officer, chief transformation officer, chief digital officer, chief AI officer, CHCIO. And I start thinking, they're like, what is the Venn diagram of overlap between all these roles? CIO, CMIO, CTO, chief transformation officer, just so much. And I'm like, are all these necessary, or is this just kind of like bureaucracy in some organizations kind of running wild?
Yeah, it's a combination. I think if you're Mayo, you're Cleveland Clinic, you're some of these, Johns Hopkins, Stanford. Yeah, to me, it makes sense because these are huge organizations. They're super innovative, which I want them to be, because at Renown, we're not a 10 billion, $20 billion organization.
Yeah, let them take all the risks and do all the crazy
Let them
stuff,
do
right?
all the shiny bright objects, and then tell me
Yeah.
what works, and I'll pilot those things. But I have a whole program I call sticking to the knitting. And for organizations our size, and all IT leaders shouldn't be out there doing shiny bright objects. So for them to have, somebody focused on AI, somebody focused on digital, maybe the CIO focused on the day-to-day, operations, makes a lot of sense to me, because of how big they are and how innovative they need to be. But for smaller, like Renown, for us to have, AI and CHCIO and chief digital officer and all those types of things doesn't really make a lot of sense at all.
Dude, what is a CHCIO?
Well, CHCIO is actually the Chime boot camp. It's a letters that you put after your name, like MDRN, which is suspect. I get a lot of trouble with Chime when I talk about it, because it's a boot camp. So I forget what it's, Chime Healthcare CIO. It's for up and coming IT leaders or people that are in CIO jobs. It's a CIO boot camp, basically, right? And basically what they're trying to do is take you to the next level as an IT leader. I get it. And then, you put those letters after your name. So hopefully when you go for the next job, you went to CHCIO school.
Well, I bet how many CEOs or CFOs would even know what that means?
A lot of them don't. And I don't view it as a differentiator in getting a job these days. If I'm in a position where I was going to hire a CIO or IT leader and they had CHCIO, it wouldn't mean a damn thing to me. And
I'm going to get hate mail about the program.
Now,
I already know.
I know people have gone through the program. I know about the program. I've seen the curriculum. I know who teaches the program, those things. And that's all fine and good. There's probably some nuggets that come out of there, but it's very costly. And the thing I don't like about it is it's not continual. It's not continual learning, and they need to figure that out. It's a one-time. No, I don't think anybody fails. I would love to see the graduation on that. I mean, if you're going to pay that amount of money and they fail you, what does that say? But
is this the healthcare equivalent of a diploma?
You should have people. You should have people going back 2 or 3 years.
Well, for sure.
Times, right? And then you should have continuing education around it. Like, if you're an MD or an RN, you have to keep up, to put those letters after your name.
Even if you're a CPA, you have to.
Yeah, every year you've got to do something.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's a one and done. And I've had these conversations with that. I said, you gotta get something, have them do a project, have them do, something to retain that CHCIO. Then to me, I would be like, CHCIO.
That's worth it. Yeah.
I get it. You're continuous learning. It's not a one and done. It's not a pay the money and pass. And again, I get hate mail on this kind of stuff, but I don't care. Most of the time when I talk about this stuff, I get mentions of Chuck, you're saying what we are all thinking about, but we're early in our careers and we can't say it right now. And I get it. If you're 35, 40, you're up and coming. You got to be careful what you say. But I don't care. I'm at the end of my career and I'm actually trying to help. I'm not trying to just beat on.
No, sure.
Giving them ways to get better. Yeah. I would love to go into Chime and say, let me take over your CHCIO program and we'll make it into something. I would do that in a heartbeat. So I'm not just saying things without, offering my help on doing those things.
That's important.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I do a lot of mentoring. I think it's important as we get older. We have wisdom now, hopefully, because we've been through the wars and we've learned. And it's our responsibility to pass that down to the younger generation so they don't make the same mistakes that we did, hopefully, and avoid some of those. And like that's why I do this stick to the knitting program. Don't be a CIO of a of a $1.5 billion organization or 1 billion and start working with startups. And because you want to build your resume off the backs of the organization. That's the wrong approach.
Or spend your time going to every single function in the planet and speaking at everything.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I tell them is stick to the knitting on that. Focus on follow what Mayo and those are doing and do those things. And the other thing is stop with this self-promotion. I see it all the time on LinkedIn. Somebody gets you're gonna present like I'm presenting the Chime, right? And not Chime. I'm presenting at Becker's. I'm on a panel, right? So what Becker's wants you to do, I get it, and Chime does the same thing. They want you to promote yourself on LinkedIn because it promotes them as well, right? And I get it. So they send you this stuff to post. Well, I don't do any of that because that's self-promotion on my part. I want other people to, if they think I'm doing something right, if they want to say something nice about me on LinkedIn or not.
Dude,
feel free. You can go do that, but don't just because you get you got an award or you did something like that. You get into the
and it's always
top 100.
I'm very humbled. They're always do that. I'm very humbled, and then it's massive self-promotion. Like I don't think it's like Princess Bride. I don't think that word means what you think it means. If you said I'm very humbled, it's like I tell them, I'm going to list my awards and every great thing I've done.
Yeah, and I know a lot of them, and I'm friends with them, and I like them. They're great people. They're up and coming, and they haven't learned that lesson yet. That people are turned off by self-promotion. They really are. And to say things like, Becca comes out with a top 100, CIOs to know or something like that. And then, of course, I'm humbled by Becker's, seeing me as a stop there, stop that and stop that. Let other people go on there and say, hey, I see this guy, this person. I know him personally. He or she's amazing. I used to work for her. She's amazing. Build it that way.
Exactly.
Not the other way, right? And unfortunately, again, when you look at they're up and coming, and when I have a chance to talk to them, the last thing you want to be is a celebrity CIO or celebrity IT leader, where you're at these conferences, you're doing pictures with vendors, you're saying, and it's the same people, you see them, the same vendors, the same people doing the same
every time. Every time.
And believe me, I did all that stuff. That's why I'm telling you stop, because it doesn't help you. and not saying I'm pristine. I never did. Of course I did. I went to all these conferences thinking that was how I build my career. And it's not. It's not. It's by what you do, what your work is, and the outcome of your work, and other people advocating for you, people who worked for you and with you that enjoyed that, and they're out there doing that for you. That's what you want.
Totally agree.
And Teddy Roosevelt said, he was asked one day what his definition of community service was. And he said, do what you can with what you've got where you are. And if we all did that as a nation, as a world, we'd be all better off, right? Because it doesn't matter. You can live in a town of 30 people or 5 million people, but if you do what you can with what you got where you are, and that's the same in healthcare IT, do what you can with what you got where you are. Don't be out there on the circuit and doing that kind of stuff, because your boss wants you at home. And you're not, I guarantee you're not learning a lot, because those sessions, I've been to a lot of them, they ain't that good, and a lot of them are dated. Technology is rapidly changing quickly, and by the time the presentation is put together, submitted, and accepted and delivered, we move beyond that presentation.
Well, and there's so many, like, I go there and it's the same thing. I walk away, I'm like, what did I learn? In most cases, I learned nothing, because it's like a sound bite and a vision, and it's just a bunch of vision statements and MBA speak where you could almost interpret anything you're seeing. Like, we're really looking forward to the future and improving the continuation of patient experience, and they just say stuff, and I'm like, well, I don't even know what that sounds good. What does that mean, and how do you do it?
Doesn't.
Nothing.
That's why
Zero.
I only do,
Strike.
I do Becker's in the fall because I'm on a panel, and I only do the panels where I can say what's on my mind. And then I go to Chime once a year for networking with people, with other CIOs that I haven't seen in a while. And that's where I learn. I go to the CIOs that I know.
Yeah.
And, hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? What are you doing? And we share ideas and things like that. That's the value of those. It's not meeting with the vendors, although I do like to go and see some of the new ones that are there.
Sure.
To see what's coming, right? You learn from them as well. But the presentations to me are very stale, and like you said, they don't deliver, a lot.
I think you'd get better results handing out fortune cookies, and you probably learn more from just opening up a fortune cookie and going, "Oh, yeah, that's."
But they go and they get into these pictures, and it's the same vendors that they get in the pictures with, and the same people they get in the pictures with, and they think somehow that's helping their career. And then of course they post it, self-promotion again. I was at this conference and I learned so much, and it was great to see all these people, and again, it's all self-promotion again, and you got to stop that. And you got to promote yourself somewhat,
Sure.
out there, if it's I don't know if it's a real award, I guess, of something that you did, a humanitarian award, I don't know, whatever it is, you might want to do something like that, but it should be very rare that you're on there. And I see it so much. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad.
No, I hear you. We only got a couple minutes left.
Yep.
I want to get your take on, I just saw this come over the news this morning. So Optum changed. They're saying it was like a foreign country, some foreign actor that went after him. I mean, do you think that's what happened, or just?
It's hard to say because, you've got these groups out there that work for nation states, right? With Russia and Iran,
Sure,
China,
100%.
Yeah, and so I think what they're trying to thread the needle a little bit is because if it is a nation state attack, that gives them a little bit more cover, right?
Oh yeah,
that gives you a lot of cover. It's really hard to stop a nation state attack. But if it's a group that's working with a nation, or they're harboring them, letting them be in their country, maybe taking some of their proceeds or something like that as a kickback. But is that really a nation state or not? There's a very gray area there. So some of these groups that you hear about, are not directly tied to the government, but
they're allowed to operate.
I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to, make it out to be that, but it's silly because they didn't have MFA running, and this is
insane.
This is 101 stuff, and that's what's happening with a lot of these M&As out there. You have an Optum, which I'm sure has a very solid cybersecurity program. Buys Change Healthcare. Luckily, it didn't have enough time to merge those networks in. Otherwise, you'd see a much bigger breach than what we saw.
Yeah.
So there was some segmentation there, but for whatever reason, didn't overlay their programs onto the other. They were getting to it, but it's big. It's when you do M&A, it's hard to do. It takes a while. And look at Ascension, same type of issue there. You've got all these hospitals. I mean, and see what you're trying to do when you do an M&A, you try to merge these networks in, right? Because you want to make it easy to move information. People have access. You put everybody on Epic. You put everybody on certain systems, right?
Sure.
And that's great, but it does create a vector. But once they do get in, they can go. And Ascension saw that 11 and 19 states.
Yeah, man.
And that could have been. I haven't heard exactly what caused that issue. But that could have been a 150-bed hospital they had out in the middle of nowhere, right? But they don't have the same protocols as maybe the larger organizations. They get in there and then they get into the bigger network and move around. So it's much more sophisticated for some of these bigger organizations to get their hands around. It's a problem, but the lawyers are all over it, I'm sure, for Change, trying to limit the damage. I mean, it's going to be over $1 billion to cost them there's already lawsuits out there, and so they're probably trying anything.
Well, there's practices that have gone under. They couldn't bill, and they're done. And
No,
they're
they
forced.
moved a lot of the stuff that, luckily Optum had a lot of similar type practices, but I think it just forced the whole merger into Optum to go a lot faster than it normally would have.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but
Yeah.
I do have tinfoil under my slope hat.
Yeah. But yeah, we got a lot more of that coming, unfortunately. I mean, that's just in. Yeah.
And then how do you dance? I was talking to a CIO a lot earlier in the week. He's like, yeah, the issue is we swing and we ratchet things down so much that physicians and nurses just start to rebel internally. Like we can't even share emails internally. Like I have an attachment I got to send over and I can't even send it inside the walls. And so then they push back against everything and they go, well, I'm not going to do anything. So it's like, and I don't know. I don't know how you strike that balance.
Well, what you're going to start seeing, and it's already happened in some organization, is a CISO position, security officer, is elevating. Now, right now, my CISO reports to me, but he's on a committee. He's on a committee that reports to the board that I'm not on, and audit and compliance, right? And I think you're going to see more CISOs start to report directly to CEO, but also some directly report to the board. And when that happens, it doesn't matter what the complaints are in an organization. Whatever you put it's going to be board level. The board level is getting involved. The other things we're seeing too is I think we'll probably do this at Renown. And, you have your goals, annual goals, right? Your performance based on those goals, organization goals. Always have like a quality goal, financial goal, a patient experience goal, a growth goal, right? And you measure those all years, approved by the board, right? And all senior leaders who are focused on those. There's going to be a cybersecurity goal, and we're looking at that. Maybe it's mock phishing percentage.
That
your
makes
mock
sense.
phishing percentage. People that fall for mock phishing, 10%. We want that to be 5%. And so, imagine that you get all the senior leaders in your organization to work with leadership all the way down through the organization on a cybersecurity. And it makes a lot of sense to me because your first line of defense, we're in a shadow war here. So your first line of defense in this war are your people, your 7,000, your 20,000, your 50,000 employees, right? If they're all doing the right thing, you've got a pretty good perimeter, right? To keep the bad actors out. Because these things are, it's MFA, it's phishing emails. That's the stuff is how they're getting in. So if you're 50,000 are doing the block and tackling for you, and you have a goal that's being forced down to the organization, I think that's where we're headed. I think we're finally going to get over. This is an IT issue. This is the security police making my life miserable, because there's enough organizations that are going to either go out of business or have, I guarantee Ascension's going to be $1 billion. They're just coming up with their EHRs now.
That's what I've heard.
Change is going to $1 billion. And for smaller organizations, it'll sink you to the point where you'd have to merge with another organization to recover. So, why wouldn't it be at the board level if it's that kind of threat?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So is there anything we should have talked about that we didn't?
Gosh, no, I think we hit it all. We'll see what the hate mail is, Jeremy. I don't know how wide
we're gonna get
podcasts go, but yeah, I'll probably get well,
I
think of a combination. When I do these things, sometimes I get a little bit of both. I was like, how could you denigrate our industry? And I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm here to help. And then I get others, like I said, to say, thank you, Chuck, for saying the things that we can't say right now. And so, yeah, I'll be your advocate on that. So
what I've typically seen is I get attacked publicly, but congratulated privately. And so for myself, I want to be, I've looked at it and said, and I want to reverse it myself. I'm like, no. I'll criticize someone privately, but I want to congratulate them publicly. I want to reverse that.
Right.
For me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's and that's the same with me. But I don't go back at the people who are doing it publicly and say, "Hey, privately, I'm getting all these emails." No, I don't do that because, again, what am I doing if I do that? Self-promotion. I'm being defensive. No, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm going out in a blaze of glory, but it's to help. It's to help others coming up. It's not to hurt healthcare IT. It's not to hurt Chime or HIMSS or any of those organizations. I'm trying to help them. And if they would sit down with me and have a conversation and then do the things that I'm saying, and I would help them do those things. And believe me, I have a lot of other CIO friends that we could form a group and actually do this stuff because they nod, and I'm tired of, and what happens is CIOs go, and I'll end with this, CIOs go into an organization, right? The top CIOs, and I know who they are, and there's some really great talent and IT leaders out there that'll be great CIOs. And when they go into an organization, a lot of times they're cleaning up, right? They go in, and the person left, either they were terminated or they knew something was about to happen, so they left. And maybe they took their shiny, they built their shiny bright object instead of sticking to the knitting, right? There's culture issues, there's teamwork issues, customer service is lacking within the organization. I had all this stuff at Renown, spending way too much money, and we were 7% of OpEx, we're 4% now, and all of those things need to be fixed. And so it takes you as a CIO, new CIO, two years, maybe even a little longer to do all that, instead of building off of somebody else's work. You're breaking it all apart. And I've tested this with other CIOs, and they're like, man, I am so tired of doing that. And I tell people, I said, look where your organization would be if you were building off somebody else versus fixing. Every now, look where we'd be instead of doing that. 2 years into it, now we're going to strategic plan. We're ready. We're moving forward.
Yeah.
But we'd be in such a better place if I could have built off the previous person, but I couldn't. And so my other thing that I tell people is, like, especially IT leaders, when I go into an organization, I want to build off your successes, not clean up your messes. All right. That's what we all want. And I've tested that with other CIOs that I trust. And they're like, Chuck, we are tired. I've tested it with vendors too. I said, vendors, are you tired of trying to work, partner with an IT leader who has no clue what your product and service will do for them in their organization? And you're just beating your head against the wall because this person has no clue. And they're like, Chuck, it's a mess out there. It is an absolute mess. And so my goal is to try to help clean that up as much as possible. It's the ones who are never going to get it, you need to move on. Some other industry or somewhere. The ones who get it, we need to promote them up and get them in there so we can build off the successes. There's plenty of money in IT. In healthcare IT, a lot of people say, "Oh, you don't invest enough." There's plenty. We just spend it all in the wrong places. We spend it all on, on shiny bright objects and stuff like that. There's plenty of money out there. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a good place to end. Like, so basically, in backcountry, I spent a ton of time in the backcountry. So if you can't leave it better than you found it, at least leave no trace.
Exactly. Yeah, leave it where somebody can. That's my goal. When I leave an organization, eventually I'll probably retire, as CIO from now and move on to bigger and better things, or at least bigger thing. I don't know, bigger, maybe not even bigger and better, but different. That, the person in line, I'm doing succession planning right now. We've got candidates in that role. I want people to be, whoever we pick in that position is to continue on. Yeah, maybe fix some things that need to be fixed and not perfect. But continue on, not to break everything apart again, reorganize the leadership and all the stuff that I had to do. No. Focus on moving the organization forward. And if we could all do that across all of healthcare, oh my God, it'd be sea change. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. That's a great place to leave it. Well, man, this has been a real pleasure. Fascinating conversation. I think people are going to enjoy it. Again, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn in the description. I got your Instagram in the description as well, which will connect to Facebook. But good luck with the rest of your boot camp today, and have an awesome weekend, my friend.
You too, Jeremy. Yeah, good luck on the ride. And that's great what you're doing with the youth there. That's what I was talking about. Do what you can with what you have. what you got where you are, Teddy Roosevelt. You're doing it, man. So keep doing it.
Awesome, my friend. Have a great weekend, sir.
All right. You too. Take care.
See you, bud.
I know.